Hey, can you believe in 2024 we are still getting athletes that are straining and tearing their hamstrings? And the crazy part about it is they still blame the fucking hamstring. Here's quite possibly the most important part of this video. You ready for it? The health of the hamstring is dependent upon the health of the quad. My name's Ty and I'm a physical preparation coach. And in this video, I'm going to explain more about why the hamstring actually gets injured in the first place and how to prevent it from happening in the future. And if you stick around right to the end of the video, I'm going to give you a significant offer that you should not refuse. So hang around. Let me just talk about a sport that I played for a very, very long time, and that is rugby league. Now, in the NRL this past season, at one stage during the Origin series, we had our best halfback and our best 5'8" out. That is simply not good enough and should not have happened in the first place. One was a hamstring injury and one was a groin injury. Absolutely not acceptable. Now, the absolute madness that typically happens when an athlete gets a hamstring injury is that they blame the poor old hamstring. That is absolutely fucking crazy, and you're only going to end up treating the symptom. And we see this time and time again where the same athletes get the same recurring hamstring injuries. Rugby league players are in a running sport. Running itself is a quad dominant activity. The reason for this is the trunk is in an upright position when you run, generally speaking, which means the quads are dominating in their contribution to the running action more so than the glutes and the hamstrings. So the quads, just by playing the sport, the quads and hip flexors are going to get tighter. Now, I said before that the hamstring is a product of the quad. What happens when the quad gets tight is the pelvis gets dragged forward into anterior rotation. So what that means is the hamstrings are held in a chronically long position. So the hip flexors shorten, quads hip flexors shorten, drag the pelvis forward, and then they put the hamstrings in a lengthened position and they're held there. And what happens when that happens is the hamstrings will get tighter and tighter. The tension will rise. And when tension gets high enough, eventually something's going to tear. Now, the other component to this is when you get anterior rotation from tight quads, hip flexors, you also get a nerve compression in the lumbar, in the lower back. And those nerves that travel out of the lumbar, they innervate the muscles in the lower body. So you get a crushing effect on these nerves. And that means they're not going to function properly. So you can create spasms that feel like strains in the hamstrings. So just by reversing that anterior rotation, you're taking the pressure off that nerve supply. Now, there is another possible contributor to hamstring injuries, and it might affect where on the hamstring you'll get the injury. And that is the possible rotation of the upper leg. So what I mean by that is the glutes or the groin are tight. So you're either internally or externally rotated, which affects which part of the hamstring is kept in a lengthened position and therefore creates high tension. So the rotation of the upper leg can be a contributor. And we mentioned a groin injury. This is definitely one of those major factors, the glutes and the groin tightening and creating the internal or external rotation. So that's definitely a major factor for a groin injury, but can also be a factor in hamstring injuries as well. So now I'm going to give you a list of things that you need to change in order to overcome or find a solution for your hamstring injury. Number one, most important thing, that's why I'm saying it first, is you need to improve the length and the tension of the quads hip flexors. Has to be done. Now, you have to improve this using an appropriate and individualized stretching program. I'm not talking about this fake bullshit stretching that you may have seen on TV. Most of it's absolute rubbish. A real, proper stretching program that prioritizes the quads hip flexors in terms of sequence and volume. Now, length and tension. And you have to have a high standard of both of those. And I believe, for the most part, so-called coaches or professionals have a very, very low standard of what this actually is, and therefore their athletes keep getting recurring injuries. So have a high standard of length and tension of the quads, hip flexors. Now, obviously involved in that as well will be a skilled massage therapist, which, to be honest, can be hard to find. And some tension work on your ITB will also help. When you're rolling your quads, you should also be doing some rolling work, or at least checking the tension on your ITB as well. Believe me, the rolling work will take you longer than what is out there in the mainstream. Just to give you an example, you could be rolling your quads and ITB for 60 to 90 minutes, and that would be normal for someone that plays a professional level running sport. So as well as loosening off the quads, hip flexors and rotating the pelvis posteriorly and taking the pressure off that nerve supply in the lumbar, we're also going to reverse what I talked about with the rotation of the upper leg. So a stretching program on top of your current stretching program that prioritizes the quads, you're also going to stretch your glutes and groin so that you square up the legs. So you can see we're getting the body back to where it should be to operate and function optimally. So unrotate the upper legs, stretch your groin, stretch your glutes. Now here's where I really start to challenge insecure coaches. You need to reduce unnecessary running in your training load week to week. You're going to have a hard enough time recovering from a 80-minute game from one week to the next without adding in bullshit unnecessary running. In-season training should be about skills and tactical work anyway. This bullshit fitness obsession is adding more quad dominance to these running athletes. Reduce drastically any unnecessary running. And if you are doing speed training properly, speed training should be low volume anyway, and very little fatigue involved in proper speed training. And most rugby league coaches don't do that at all. So they're not even doing speed training. They're doing endurance training. So reduce the amount of running in your training week to week. Don't even get me started on the off season. How fucked up that is. Now here's another one that the strength coaches will have an extremely hard time with, and that is to drastically reduce the amount of quad dominant strength work in your strength program. Sometimes, for certain individuals, they are so far in the quad dominant range that you have to take the quad dominant work out. And what is the quad dominant work? Squats and variations of. And what dominates in athletic training in their strength work? Squats and other quad dominant exercises, leg pressing, lunges. Reduce drastically your quad dominant work, or sometimes omit it if it's appropriate to do so. Remember, we're trying to tip the scales in your favor and get rid of this quad dominance in your lower body. The next thing, to take advantage of the great work that you're doing with your quad stretching program, you're going to solidify that posterior rotation by training your abdominals. I didn't use the trend word core. Train your abdominals. The term core is way too general. Your abdominals have multiple lines of movement, just like your general strength training does. So, the abdominal lines of movement: trunk flexion, hip flexion, lateral flexion, trunk and hip rotation, integrated exercises, and co-contraction. They are another one of Ian King's innovations in terms of balancing your program design. Now, most people have no fucking idea of any structure in their abdominal training. And where do they put it? They put it last. So it's an afterthought. Same thing they do with their stretching. Absolutely fucking madness. Do not do this. You put them first. So it'll look like this. You'll stretch, you'll train your abs, you'll do control drills, then you'll do your general strength work. That's the sequence in which you should be using. Now, the final thing that I just mentioned, control drills. Another Ian King innovation. I know it's been lost along the way and they come up with all these fucked up, crazy trend-driven ideas about what people think control drills are, you should do a control phase, or what's called a control phase, where in terms of volume in your strength training, control drills would dominate the volume and probably the frequency. So this is an individualized thing, but control drills are mainly used for the hip, the knee, and the shoulder. They can be used in other joints, but mainly, generally speaking, it's the hip, the knee, and the shoulder. Now, for hip, generally speaking, we'll get more glute control drills being done. And this is what you'll need to do for a certain period of time. It might be 3 to 4 weeks, for example, where you'll be doing more control drills for the glutes. And this is another way in which you can posteriorly rotate the pelvis. The glutes are talked about a lot. They're another big showy sort of muscle, and they're trendy. Your abdominals are actually more important in terms of posteriorly rotating, but the glutes do contribute, so they have a role to play. So by doing the control phase, you'll get under control your resting tension in your glutes and help posteriorly rotate the pelvis, which is one of the major factors in hamstring injuries. Now, I've gone through a lot of reasons and given you some major causes for hamstring injuries. But the next challenge is, how do you apply it? Because that's really what matters most. It's all well and good to say, oh, I need to stretch more, train abs, do control drills, blah, blah, blah. But it's your application of doing these things that actually matters, because you can go horribly wrong if you don't know how to apply it. Now, I said at the start of the video that I'd offer you an opportunity, and here it is. If you're someone that currently has a hamstring injury, or you're someone that has struggled with recurring, constant hamstring injuries, this is the offer. Reach out to me, DM me, we'll chat, we'll individualize some protocols that you can utilize to get rid of this injury. In exchange, I'd love for you to provide a testimonial talking about your experiences and what the protocols were that you did and how you got the result. That's it. No charge, no money down, and that's it. Now, if this offer sounds good to you, you better get in quick, because it's only available to the first 3 people that get in. So reach out, let's get this injury solved. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll need to click one of the links that we have available and head to one of the other platforms for the Prevention Project and reach out to me there, and we can start having a chat about some possible solutions. Now, I do have a pretty strict rule. I'm not here to coach coaches. So I'm only here to help athletes or general population. I'm not coaching PTs or other coaches. I'm not interested in doing that. If you wanted to do that, you should go and see KSI, King Sports International, Ian King's coaching program. You should go there and be a part of that if you're wanting to learn how to be a coach. So just general population and athletes. Reach out and let's have a chat. So I hope to hear from you soon.